It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. It's Feedback Friday. We made it. This was a long week. Good week, but long week. So I'm a little punchy. Yeah, I'm gonna get in. I cherry picked comments that I felt were indicative of the larger whole, and whole, you said whole, it's gonna be one of those videos, but I'm gonna focus mostly on the Monday video about MeToo, just because there were so many comments, and other things will get tied in, but I do want to say that after 1 week, we had planned multiple weeks on Two Women Talking for a song to fundraise her MAP. Song's already made her first goal on coffee. So thank you guys so much for that. We are doing a stretch goal, so to speak. That was a continental map she wanted to get for Calidus Chronicles Volume 2. She now wants to do a city map of the city of Cardea. So we're going to keep going because we've tagged the content for another 3 or 4 weeks. So we're going to see, but thank you. We really appreciate the support. I know she's really touched. If you're feeling generous, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Get access to our Discord, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who but can't afford at coffee.com/LeannaK. Also gets you access to the Discord, or you can kick a few bucks for the GoFundMe. All the links are in the description box of this video. And the Me Too thing brought a lot of fresh eyes onto things. So welcome. Glad you're here. So I've cherry picked one thing. Someone said, I saw those graphs this morning, the graphs I used for the Manly Monday video on a meme site, and didn't expect anything of value to come from it. So you surprised me again, Leanna. A pleasant surprise, I think. Personally, I found it eye-opening how much shit came to light with Me Too, especially among those who often, and until the moment of their exposure, were all too willing to present themselves as so much better than the common folk who need to be educated by them on how to be a good human. Your Joss Whedon rant video is one I remember as really beautiful, and the choice of word is deliberate. The disenchantment of the divine before our very eyes, the greatest among us in the end. Some are just assholes and perverts. And yeah, I'm really glad that was someone's takeaway. Not that I made a beautiful video. I like that. But, the idea that these people that we indicate as high status in society are just people, and all of us are flawed. All of us, some people have quirks and flaws that mainly hurt us. We're not really a danger to anybody else, despite some people thinking I'm dangerous because I make sense, or I seem reasonable. That was the claim. The reason I'm dangerous. More traditional feminists think I'm dangerous. People on the other side think I'm dangerous. I think that means I'm just cool. But moving on, the important thing is anybody in the media is just a human. And the way we treat media personalities is somehow divine or heroic. It's just not so. And I'm glad that I can offer an alternative to that, because that was something I was always very uncomfortable with when I was on television. I could never just go somewhere. I mean, this is kind of dressing up for me. But, being a schlub just with ideas, that's where I'm most comfortable and happiest. And I don't think all the glam is necessary or even a good thing when it comes to talking about ideas, because the original term of glamour was a spell that concealed a person's true appearance. It was deceptive. And I think that's very important to keep in mind in social media has become very glossy, and I don't like the heavily produced videos. I like raw video and I like text, because then I can really, really analyze it. Whenever the reason I don't like things like Dateline or 60 Minutes or any of those sort of magazine interview shows is those interviews are heavily, heavily edited. Good Morning America, all that stuff. The news outlet is deciding how they're going to portray the subject. There's a lot you can do in editing to change the meaning and the context of how someone's responding. And I prefer to watch original clips of things or read a transcript that gives me a more accurate picture. And having worked with celebrities, having been behind the scenes, having seen all that, having been on television myself, I do have a different perspective on that stuff. Some celebrities are amazing people. Others are Joss Whedon, who everybody knew was a shitbag and nobody could say anything about it. And that's just the way the Hollywood hierarchy goes. And I mean, I'm going to make my one comment on the whole Barbie Oscar snub, in that Margot Robbie has been so classy about the whole thing, talking about how she can't be sad because Barbie's such a cultural phenomenon that means so much to people. And I compared that to Christopher Nolan complaining about a Peloton instructor not liking Tenet at the Directors Guild Awards. And I made a crack on Twitter about it being, women versus men in Hollywood. And I wasn't totally serious about that. It's Margot Robbie as an individual versus Christopher Nolan as an individual. There are plenty of humble, thankful, grateful men working in Hollywood. Many of them aren't directors. But thanks for the kudos. And yeah, that's an opportunity to talk about that, because that will move on. The thing about Chris Nolan and the Peloton instructor not liking Tenet, his brain obviously latches onto negatives and can't let them go. So no matter how many awards, how many nominations he gets, that one comment from a Peloton instructor is going to stick with him. And that he has some work to do, clearly. Someone said, I've heard it said that for every negative interaction, the brain needs 5 positive interactions to counter the effect. I've seen it be as high as 9 or 10. And so having those positive reinforcements in your life are so important. I said to a client this week that I want to foster an environment where it isn't just about avoiding negatives, because that's stay in the cave. I want a community of honest mistakes, because you have to reward good behavior as well as punish bad behavior, or everyone just tries to avoid mistakes, and so no one ever learns. If you've got a community where you check someone when they screw up, but it's known like, okay, once the fight's over, it's over. There's no lingering resentments. You haven't, you will be treated fairly, and we encourage you to get back out there and try again. That's what we do on the Discord. That's what I try to do in this stuff. So somebody makes a comment that is less than wise, I may dunk on them. This week I didn't, because I want to focus on the more serious stuff. And I do think sometimes there's a reason I don't say names in comments. It's anonymized, so I'm attacking the idea, not the person. I will praise people up the wazoo. Armti Aquila commenters who ask, Armti Aquila with a Q, like the Latin word for eagle. That's Aquila's channel on YouTube. Should have Aquila back on so you guys can be reintroduced to her. That's a good idea. I'm on her channel quite a bit. I do a thing called Two Vets and a Civilian with her on the channel. Aquila's great. We love her to death. And so this is when we get into rhetoric. And one person said, I'd be interested in hearing more details about therapy talk language being feminized. And one of the things I want to talk about going forward is I I have been using an approach with a lot of male clients lately, and I didn't have a name for it. But I call it the no pity zone. And I do think a lot of the language that we are taught is empathetic reads as pity. Hello, Zelda. To men. And one client actually said to me early on working with him is, I cannot stand people saying they're sorry things happened to me because they didn't do it. It just feels like they're pitying me. And so I don't say that to him. And I've tried the same approach with other men who, I mean, I keep this guy, he's a badass. He's a tough guy, and it's not that he's or anything like that. He is just hardcore. That's why we get along. But he really crystallized the no pity zone for me. And I do think that that is something in mental health with the feminizing of language. That I'm so sorry that happened to you. I know I have I say it to people because it's expected, but sometimes it rings true. Like if somebody has a really bad experience with a feminist, I do yeah, sorry, on behalf of those of us who aren't like that. Yeah, that was a bad, that matters. But if you have absolutely no connection to it and it's just, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you, that tends to really land with women, but not with men. And I think that ties into something another commenter, I'm not sure, this is a hypothesis in this case, I'm making a connection as an experiment, but one comment that really jumped out at me is, and there are other things in therapy that are feminized. A lot of the big models now, cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, acceptance commitments therapy, all developed by women primarily. And because therapy is seen as a caring and helping profession, it's seen more as feminized. If you want a really badass male therapist specializing in trauma, check out Glenn Patrick Doyle on social media. He's got a much more masculinized messaging. So there's less gentle, and more, this is tough. We're tough. No pity zone. Right? And gentleness shouldn't be seen as emasculating, but the reality is for a lot of guys, it is. And it's better to just recognize that and figure out what to do about it than to put a moral judgment on that. And this leads me to this comment that I think crystallizes the problem. One thing about the rhetoric that all different kinds of activists use is that whenever women or girls are affected, it's always XYZ needs to change to benefit women and girls. Whereas if men or boys are struggling with anything, it's always, this is what men and boys need to change. And that pisses me off. And we do know, and I talk about this a lot, from the time we're kids, boys are instructed to do well. Women are expected to try hard. And this helps no one. We know that boys are shown less gentleness from the time they are babies throughout their lives. We feel this need to toughen boys up. Had a father who wanted a boy. I was raised that way. I don't know if the fact that all my inner voices have beards is because of that, whether it's a combination of nature or nurture, because my sister's a huge girly girl. I don't know if I was always that way. And what I do know is that people either punish me for not being properly girly, or they are inherently rougher on me than they would be any other woman because they just see something. There is something about me that just brings out the raw in people, and I think it's not totally understandable. It's just something I have to accept. And I do think that there is some of it where I know it's not somebody talking at me. They finally have a chance to give voice to something that they've been cooping up inside them for a really long time. And so in that case, they're not yelling at me. They're just yelling at the situation. That's totally cool. I'm good with that. But there is just this sense that some people can take it and are completely responsible for what they do, and some people aren't. And the coddling of women drives me crazy. And I think we're too rough on men, and we don't hold women to account enough. And I don't think in the long run that's good for women. I think it's a perpetuation of inequality. I said to a client earlier this week, with women, instead of Yoda's, there is no try, do or do not, it's there is no do, try or try not. That whole, well, just try. It's like, well, you probably won't be able to do this, but just try. That's the message we see more sent to girls. We know you're not good at this, but let's just, whereas boys are like, no, get better, get good, right? And it's seen as offensive if we say to women, okay, you're better than this. And I do think that needs to change. I think there's a happy medium. I think that the paternalism that women experience, and we know, I talked about a few weeks ago about how judges are even paternal with women. That is a problem. There is a difference between saying, I'm disappointed in you, and saying, I know you can do better. One is talking to someone looking down at them of, I have authority over you. Whereas the other is, look, I know you, and this isn't you. And it's amazing how when I say that to men, that gets a very good result. When I say that to women, it always leads to a fight, because it's the can't separate did a bad thing from I'm a bad person. And I'm not saying men are great at did a bad thing versus I'm a bad person. It just manifests differently. And it is because of this sense that with boys, characteristics are learned and earned. With women, characteristics are innate. And that, I still struggle with the idea that you're either innately girl and, not gender identity girl, idealized, right? You're either feminine, not just a woman, and you're intrinsically beautiful and light and angelic. And so you're going to get things in life, and people are going to do things for you, and people are going to say yes, and you're going to be treated with compassion and kindness and have people help you. I am not that. It's that song in Wicked, he could be that boy, but I'm not that girl. That one. You got pretty girls. You got beautiful girls who life is on a platter for them. People just do things for them. I am in awe of women who people just throw shit at them. And then there's people like me who the only thing people really throw at them is insults. Like, I really appreciate the support on this channel, but let's face it, I could never do an OnlyFans. I just don't have that in me. I have to provide value. It's much more like a guy experiences the world. And I'm not saying this is right. This is something I work on all the time, but I do walk around feeling ugly because proper women get treated a certain way that I don't get treated. And that that's a thing I've felt my entire life. So when a commenter says that if women are affected, things need to change for them, whereas if men and boys struggle, it's always like, this is what they need to change. And yeah, because I fell outside of that paradigm. I was always the one, I didn't get it's okay. I didn't get comforted. I never in my life. It's always, this is what you did wrong, and this is what you did wrong, and this is what you did wrong, and you suck, and you have to show me you're better or else. That was my entire formative years. It was the 11th grade. And teachers probably showed me kindness before that, some of them anyway, but I actually failed a test, only one I'd ever failed in my life. But the math teacher was compassionate, Mr. Schifrin, and instead of going, you have to work harder, he's like, what happened? What is going on? It wasn't you failed. It was something is clearly different here. And there was a bunch of stuff. It was grade 11. But you see, I'm getting emotional because that little bit of compassion is so powerful, you know? And that's what a lot of men don't get. And that's what I think this comment and the whole reaction to MeToo, especially the way MeToo excluded men who were preyed on from the narrative. Guys like Terry Crews, guys like Brendan Fraser. It became a women versus men thing as opposed to just bad people exist in all shapes, sizes, and colors. Let's focus on that, and let's really look at the dynamics of each individual situation instead of focusing on the window dressing of, oh, Johnny Depp smashed a cabinet closed on video once, and that proves he's abusive. I mean, I've done that. I know that sometimes I've gone and just smashed something because I'm angry and the energy's got to go where. I'd never do it to a person. Never. No matter what Stalker Chan tries to claim. Yeah, that's one of the things she says. Yeah, it is different, and we don't really focus on the why with men. It's just do better, be stronger, hold it in more, you know. It's all the Frozen lyrics, only men never get the let it go chorus. And that's real. And one of the things we do need to do is give men a space where it's a tightrope, right? Because it can't be a safe space, because then it's the pity zone. Then there's no challenge. Then there's no, if you can't do it wrong, then there's no sense of doing it right. It's that do it instead of try. So there has to be standards of behavior, and there has to be an understanding that people will tell them when they think they're wrong. It's how that's done, for one, but also they do need the ability to explain. They do need the ability to get support for the fact that what happened to them was real and that their feelings are okay. And if they do get emotional, they do break down, they do cry, or they do express pain, it's not a burden. And that's where, I mean, I have this whole, in you know, my culture, we have the concept of tzedakah, which is often translated as charity from the Hebrew, and that's actually not what it means. It means obligation. We are here to listen and support and be there for each other. And a lot of people, a lot of the guys who are the best listeners and the most compassionate don't feel like they can ever open up themselves because they were punished for it when they were younger. And I can relate to that a lot. But then there's this greater feeling, and I felt this. I still feel this way, of being a burden. You know, being a burden is terrifying. And it is very important that we shift our perspective on that one. Because, yes, there is a particular feminine behavior where man can't do something and they get the, now I have to do that too. And yes, the household labor thing is that we know the statistics. Let's not go there. I'm talking one-on-one at this point. I'm talking, men who have legitimate health conditions and don't feel like they can tell their partner, I need to slow down. I need to rest for a couple days. And yes, that's going to be extra work for you. And I appreciate that, but I really do need the break. That men live in fear of the fine when it's clearly not fine. Or, oh my God, the big explosion because their partner is overwhelmed and not coping either. And, when there's a relationship and neither party's really coping, it could just be a bad time. It could also be a sign that you need to start doing things differently. But my mnemonic, the way I've reframed the idea of being a burden, because I have been painted as that. I have been cast as that my whole life as well. And it made me very uncomfortable with asking for anything, which, okay, in this line, I have to ask for support every single video. And that was really good for me. It was really hard. It's still hard because of that idea of, it's begging. And it's not. It's knowing your value. And I finally came on this. Because I don't want to chase an algorithm. I don't want to chase advertisers. I don't want to, for instance, take money from BetterHelp because they're offering. I actively turn that down because they sell data and they mistreat therapists. I'm not going to take money from that. And that means that I have to get money direct from you guys. And the thing is, I was selling shoes or I was selling, cheese. Cheese is delicious. It wouldn't, of course you pay for that. Right. But for some odd reason, when you're paying for this kind of thing, there's this idea, you're begging. It's like, no, it's pay what you can. It's recognizing that people need to be able to access this kind of stuff regardless of income. Mental health support just should not be just for who can afford it. And unfortunately now, especially for men, the free services are demeaning and degrading. And I think that we can do better. The problem is, as I have learned, there's zero interest in government funding things for men. So this commenter is right. Men and boys just need to change, right? There's tons of programs for women and certain minorities and this, that, and the next thing. But men as a group, no, nobody wants to throw money at it. It's a loser. Well, I disagree. So here's a little mnemonic about the feeling of being a burden. Who are the people with the most assistance and support staff and even, back in the day, servants rich, important people. The more you're doing, the more support you need. You know, do we think of Elon Musk as a burden? Maybe we should to the people who work for him. But no, he's a job creator, right? There are opportunities in reaching out. You'll be surprised how many people want to be there for you. One of the most rewarding things I have experienced recently is the moderators in the Discord forum, and Song kind of called me out on a Two Women Talking coming out. It was awesome. They're saying you take too much, you eat too much shit. And one, the fact that they had, you know, they felt comfortable enough to criticize me. That's good. And you know, that's constructive criticism, right? That's not just you're bad. That's like you're taking way too much. This is too much. But you know, it was also, you don't always have to tank. Even the strongest tanks have a limited number of hit points, right? And I have found that if you do take those moments, if you do rest, if you do dare to matter, dare to take up space, dare to make sound, it's not a burden. It's mattering, right? It's being important. That's why we see somebody with personal assistants and secretaries and, interns and all this stuff, not as somebody who can't answer their own phone and do their own damn email and pick up their own dry cleaning. Why are these people so self-sufficient, so lacking self-sufficiently? No, they're important. They're busy. That's why they have other people for this stuff. Let people support you. Let people help you. Yes, sometimes people will disappoint you and let you down, but that doesn't mean you're a burden. It just means some people aren't real good with time management. Sometimes they bite off more than they can chew. But that's a community thing too as well. And so I appreciate this feedback that I can learn from. And it is true. I do think there are things that that things do have to change for the benefit of men, certainly in the mental health space. Like I said, the no pity zone. And I do think that there are expectations we have on girls that need to be more accountable. I don't think it's always a question of society changing. There is still more that society has to change. But I do think that, some of the emotional and even physical abuse of men that is normalized by society does need to change. And you guys know I feel very strongly on that because I do think that abuse is a cycle. And if men are abused and they're told it's normal, then yeah, they're going to perform that on their wives, on their girlfriends, on their mother, because they're a person and they were expected to take it, and women are equal to men. So if they're expected to take it, why can't their partner? Why can't their wife? This is just normal. They don't see it as abuse. The way to stop that is to stop that man from being abused and coerced and silenced and criticized. So they don't see abuse and coercion and silencing and criticizing as the norm, as okay. That's how we break that cycle. Makes sense, right? So let's do it. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/Leanna K. Or if you don't want any of the stuff, if you don't want the Discord access, you just want to kick us a few bucks this month, that's what the GoFundMe's for. Thanks for watching, and didn't have it ready. Have a great weekend.